Hi, everybody. Welcome. And this is the second day of Kwanzaa, and our principal for today, Kujichagulia. And today, to talk about the principal, we have Pepper Moore from the Afro-American Cultural and Historical Society in Hayward in the Tri-Cities. So, Pepper, it's now on you.
Okay, so welcome. Thank you, James, for introducing me. This is day 2 of Kwanzaa. And we're looking at Sunday, December 27th, Kujichagulia, self-determination. Self-determination is to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Veronica, do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about it?
Okay, thank you for introducing us today and getting us started, Pepper. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, our second day. And to recap a little bit from yesterday, our research showed us that you can celebrate Kwanzaa in your own way. So what we're doing here is celebrating in our own way. We don't necessarily have to have the African attire or the big meal, but we want to explore and embrace the principles, because the principles are something that the African American community really needs to embrace at this point. So today, self-determination, we're going to look at inventing ourselves and knowing ourselves. Very important to respect ourselves. Think of ourselves, defining ourselves. We're going to live true to ourselves. So we're going to talk about self today. And yesterday, we talked about the co-joining circles, how we each are part of a family, a community, the American community, the global community, but the core of all of that is self. So we're going to talk about self-determination and just explore a little bit about what we can all do as far as defining ourselves and being at peace with who we are and what we do. So slavery required some creative redefining of African Americans. Our people were brought here and defined as savages. Savages became slaves, and slaves became colored people or Negroes. Black was the next thing that they used to define us. And my grandmother, she never accepted Black. She just insisted she was not Black. So even with the terms that they used to define us, some of us didn't even accept them. Now today, the politically correct term is African American, which is fine with me, but I really do stumble over that often, African American. And oftentimes I hear myself saying Black instead of African American. So there's been a lot of other things and people that have defined us, but we need to now redefine ourselves. As we have learned about our culture that was stripped from us and about our efforts and advancements in the face of death and extraordinary oppression, we have begun the process of redefining ourselves. So let us invent ourselves, know ourselves, and respect ourselves. We need to be in command of our lives and put aside the expectation or doubt of others. When we excel, it feels good. There's personal joy and so much in accomplishment. And it really adds the meaning to our lives. All of us are here for a purpose. So we need to be comfortable with the fact that we're fulfilling our purpose here. You can do and be anything you want to is not what I was taught. I'm a senior citizen, so I was taught you could be a secretary, you could be a teacher, but I really wasn't taught that I could be anything that I want. And for me, I wanted to be a secretary. And I love typing, and all I wanted was a typewriter. So that's how I was taught. But then I had two sons, and by that time, I had learned enough to teach them you can be anything you want to be. Stay in school, get your education, and the sky is the limit. And I had very high expectations for my boys. They both were quick learners, and I just knew that they would excel. So I had, and I did put probably, I don't know that it was too much pressure, but I didn't accept anything, other than an A and a B. I didn't want to see C's, and I definitely didn't want to see D's and E's. And sometimes that's a little bit too much pressure. I'm not really sure, but I was learning as I went along. I also had to warn my boys that being cool could be dangerous. You want to be able to think for yourself. So I wanted them, and I want us, and that's why we're going through this today, to sort through things, question, analyze, and decide your values and opinions. When you take the time to be quiet and sort through these things, you will get to the point where you can articulate them, and even if only for yourself, then you can know yourself and be true to yourself. So get a quiet corner and think through these things. Defining ourselves takes work. Living true to ourselves requires fight and stamina. And one thing I do want to warn you about, don't be crammed into a box that is somebody else's dream. A lot of people, whether it's parents, spouses, employers, whoever, grandparents even, they have their dreams and fantasies for you, but you need to define yourself. And you'll find yourself oftentimes fighting those who believe that they know what's best for you. And yet they may be driven by their own concerns. I, as a mother, I have my concerns for my son, and this is what I want him to do. Well, that might not be him, and only he knows what's inside of him. Only you know what's inside of you. Be true to yourself. Okay? So in that regard, there's a quote by Amy Garvey that says, "Stand on your own two black feet and fight like hell for your place in the world." I really like that quote. Stand on your own two black feet.
Mhm.
It's you. Like I said in the beginning, all of those conjoining circles, you are the core. It's about you and your accomplishments and what you do to enhance those circles that you're connected to. So when you desire a grand achievement, we have to be prepared to face ridicule. We need to have the guts to stand up to that. You may cope with that by just keeping everything to yourself. Just keep all your hopes and dreams close to your chest and don't tell anybody. Or you might enjoy the challenge of stating your goals publicly so that you are driven to prove your seriousness. So I'll share what I've done over the years is I always put it out there. And I come up with some pretty crazy things. And my family and friends tell me all the time, "You're crazy." Well, I'm okay with being crazy. And if they tell you you're crazy, be okay with being crazy. Because as crazy as the things that I've done have been, I've succeeded at them all. And when somebody tells me you can't do that, oh, then that's my ticket. That's when I know for sure I will do it. So I encourage you all to do the same thing. Don't be stifled by the ridicule. And, people will actually laugh at you when you come up with some of the things that you want to do. Don't be, don't let that stop you. Okay. Uh, at this point in my life, I when I say I'm going to do something and they tell me I'm crazy, I say, yeah, I've been crazy all my life. And I'm okay with that. Allow yourselves to dream big. Let no one cut your dreams down in size. I dream big because I serve a very big God. And I learned, several years ago, that my dreams come from God. And the bigger the dream, the more I am sure that it comes from God. Satan isn't really concerned about, you succeeding and fulfilling big dreams. So he's not going to give you those dreams. They come from God. So pursue them. All right. We must be the ones to program our present and our future. That ball is in your court because we see ourselves infinitely more important than how others see us or depict us. So what you see in yourself, what only you know is in yourself, should determine your present and your future. No matter what your job, do it as best you can. Do everything with excellence. I don't care what your job is, do it with excellence. If you're sweeping the street, sweep it with excellence. And know that what you're doing, you're not necessarily doing it for your boss or the company that you work for. Do it with excellence and know that you're doing it unto God. And that for me worked in my career. When I stopped working hard to get the next promotion or the next raise, but just did everything with excellence and knew that I was doing it unto God and that God would reward me, I was getting raises and promotions and I was like, oh, wow, nice. But when you do it just for the raise or the promotion, it's a little difficult. But to have true peace and success, just do it with excellence and do it unto God, expecting nothing in return. And lo and behold, you'll probably get a lot in return. And the next point I want to bring out is looking at where you are now. And this is for young people, this is for old people, this is for me. Look at where you are now, but don't limit yourself to that. Experiment with other things because God has put so much into each and every one of us. And we have so much untapped talent in us. So if you experiment with some other things, you'll probably be pleasantly surprised. And I'll share a couple of my personal experiences in that regard. I told you how I only wanted to be a secretary, as a little girl. I mean, 9, 10 years old, that's what I wanted to be. And I grew up and I became a secretary, a very good secretary. I wanted to be a legal secretary. I worked for a law firm and everything was going great. But then I left there and I went to work for IBM as a secretary and also did very well. But at some point, IBM was pushing me in a direction that I didn't want to go. And I'm figuring out what I want to do, what I'm going to do. And then I decide I'm joining the Army. And that's what I did. And I became an air traffic controller. So from secretary to air traffic controller, who would imagine? And how many people told me, oh, you can't do that. You don't want to do that. You can't do that. So please try other things. I have another friend who worked with me for years, and she started taking voice lessons. To her surprise, she really had a voice and ended up singing with the Denver Opera. And she had no idea that was in her. So take some time and think about what course your life should take, and listen to your inner self and determine who and what you should be. And visualize yourself succeeding at all of your goals. Self determination is so important. So stay committed and take the time today to just sit and think about what you want to do, how you want to define yourself, how you want the world to see you. And Pepper, would you like to add some of your experiences? I know you're self-determined. You're a real go-getter. So would you like to share some?
Thank you, Veronica. Not so much experiences, but for me, perspective. I really like what you had to say about sort through your experiences or your understanding so that you can articulate them.
Mhm,
Um, we get, I would say we get two kinds of education in our lives, academic and the social.
mhm,
What we do in school and what we do with our friends, the people that we meet, those two things help us determine our perspective in life.
mhm,
The social really starts even before school, how we interact with people and those experiences that help us shape our identity and how the world and recognize how the world sees us.
mhm.
And in the social, we learn early to think about to kind of notice our differences. Maybe when we're with
Yeah,
our friends, we see my skin is darker, and then we notice that people are
yeah.
calling us black. And I work with kids, and one of my kids even asked me, kind of in a roundabout way, he was looking at a wooden door, and
Mhm,
he mentioned that that's brown, and I was like, yeah, and he's like, your skin is the same color as that, and he was like thinking about us calling ourselves black, and I was like, yes, it is, it's brown, but not to get too serious about it, but even the point is, even that small, we notice those things,
right.
those things that aren't in line with kind of the obvious,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So then what I would encourage you to do when you're thinking about Kujichagulia, about self-determination, hold on to that part of yourself that
mhm,
notices those things that are just obvious, that kind of get changed and help us to condition ourselves to the world. Um, when we learn about stories in slavery and use those to define our position as brown people or as um, kind of peach colored people, then that's how we get this hierarchy going, the superiority or inferiority, and what we
mhm.
have to fight against and fight for. And the fact of the matter is that we're all human.
Yeah.
And when we fill out these surveys, they serve a financial purpose, so it's important that that we do fill them out so that funds get allocated to services that we need. But recognize that you can fill out a survey and say that you don't have a race. The race is human.
Mm,
That is part of conditioning. It's underlining, and it creates a space for a knee-jerk response when it's not a survey. When someone says, "What race are you?" or "What race is that?" And
mhm,
it's actually a culture and a heritage that that creates a space for us to grow into identities. That's what this
mm,
Kujichagulia is for, so
mm,
that we can grow to define ourselves and what shapes our heritage and our culture. And when we start falling into these academic or social lines that divide us, then we're limiting the ability of humanity to reach its full potential. When we say redlining is appropriate, when we say that funds or jobs or college education shouldn't go to someone because of the color of their skin, because of something like that. Skin is to protect your insides from falling out of your body, and the different shades of it are only dressing in something for us to appreciate. So how we define our culture and how we define our heritage and who we are has to do with our actions and how we see ourselves and our groups. And those things don't need to separate us. They can bring us together. So
Exactly.
so I would go back to what Veronica said and sort through those things and articulate them, because those knee-jerk responses are what we're conditioned to answer. But if we think more and we create our own space for thinking and identity, then we're ready for anything, and we can own who we are as a people and as a humanity.
Very good. I agree. Okay, that's it for day 2. And we've lit the red candle, the first red candle to the immediate right. So, happy second day of Kwanzaa. Everybody enjoy your day.
Baragani.
Oregani. Thank you both for coming out and sharing this perspective and this principle. It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow's principle as well.